podcast in the land. So you know what? If we got to be a little late, we got to be a little bit late because it's a lot of awesome to have to coordinate behind the scenes. But we are glad to have all of you here. Khari Thompson, Taylor Kyles, who just covered his first NFL game. Yeah, it's preseason, but look, it's a momentous occasion.
It's an NFL game, man. I don't care preseason what. That was cool.
No, seriously, exactly. No, it matters. I know I definitely felt a certain way though. The first time that I covered a game was actually it was pretty hype. It was like week 16, 2019 when they wrapped up the AFC East that year. But yeah, there's something hit a little bit different from being. It just hit a little different when I was doing it as a full-time job, like covering the team. So that was pretty cool. Anyway, let's get right into it, man, because this is real football. I mean, real football that we can finally talk about after weeks of training camp and shorts. Are they in shells? Are they in full pads? Like, people tackled each other yesterday. In some cases, people tackled each other really hard. Looking at you, Keon White. Good God. Poor Dare Gumbawale. But look, first of all, I want to get your impressions. What'd you think?
I thought it was good showing from the defense, of course. Now, offensively, we'll get into it, but I just thought it was hard for them to really get anything going. And I think a lot of that was more because of the run game than the pass game. Like, when I really looked at it, the script, there were a lot of screens and quick passes. So the times that they did drop back, I thought sometimes it was, a little misunderstood why they were struggling. Again, we'll get into that. But I think there were plenty of positives to take away. Preseason, for the preseason, I didn't think there were any glaring question marks or anything like that. And with the offensive line, like Bill Belichick mentioned after the game, they're dealing with injuries to their starters. So we're seeing a completely depth offensive line. Connor McDermott was playing left tackle for the first time. He hasn't even been playing left tackle in training camp. So that was a pretty big surprise, I thought. A lot of the guys actually ended up shuffling, like Mafi and Rusi. I need to get his freaking name down. But they switched sides from what they've usually been playing. So there were some different things. We saw more of City So because Riley Reif didn't play. All the projected starters on the offensive line didn't, or none of them played. So, I mean, again, defense was great. Offense, you take the good that you can, and you just have to remember that, hey, they're dealing with issues in the trenches. And for the most part, like the rookies, the guys that you want to be seeing good things out of, I thought we saw some positive flashes from them.
And I think that the important thing to remember always, in particular with preseason game one, because I think that's the interesting thing about preseason now versus what it used to be, is that when you had 4 games, everybody more or less followed the same script, right? You get starters for a series or whatever, then you work it up, to dress rehearsal game 3, and then game 4 is just all subs and stuff like that. But this was interesting. So you got to keep in mind for those of us who are looking at it being like, why didn't Demario Douglas play more? Or we heard Bailey Zappi might not play, and then he plays like 3 quarters, right? So there's a guy like what gives? And then the fact that they couldn't run the ball, and there wasn't a whole lot of great protection from which to really showcase any kind of downfield offense. But again, I feel like you kind of deal with the hand that you're dealt with, and I think that offensively, obviously it was a slog, but I feel like we saw just enough of I think what we needed to come away with. Okay, Bailey Zappi, competent when he's given time to throw the football. Not a whole lot of eye-popping stuff. Yeah, the one really good throw to Tyquan Thornton. I feel like that one was it was a good timed throw, but it's like when you're listening to the broadcast, you hear things. It's like, wow, that was a great throw. It's like, it was kind of a hospital ball, if we're going to be honest here, but it gave Tyquan Thornton a chance to make a play, and Tyquan Thornton needed to make a play, right? We've been waiting for him to do something all camp, and that's a good moment for him. So you saw just enough of Kevin Harris going out and doing his thing as well. It was really all about the defense, though. I know you want to talk about some defense, so let's do it.
Yeah, so I mean, the pass rush was fantastic. Obviously, Daniel Ekuale was present early and often, had a sack, could have had another sack, but it seemed like he was trying to avoid actually getting a roughing the passer call, and in doing so, wound up getting one because he hit the quarterback in the face as they were falling down. So you kind of expect him to be a good pass rusher. He's been someone who's rotated in for Barmore a lot over the course of his tenure in New England, and really been a solid fill-in for him. He's never really a liability out there. He's got good explosiveness. His technique is good hand fighter. So it's good to see him make an impact. Carl Davis doing what Carl Davis does, dominating in the middle of the defense as a run defender. Anthony Jennings was a guy who was flashing, another guy really good against the run, setting that edge, but also showed where I know someone said he's got some Matt Judon in him. Not the same kind of athlete. Jennings is a bit more stiff, but he does have that knack for, I just tweeted about it, knifing into gaps, looping around and getting good timing on stunts to get pressures. And we saw that. He forced a couple high throws from C.J. Stroud that led to some incompletions. And he got the penalty for a hold. So good day for him. These are depth guys, but they're also players that you think are going to have some type of role on the team. More spot starters like Equale is a pass rusher. Carl Davis, more of a run defender. Anthony Jennings, more of a run defender. But one guy who showed up in every single element of the defense, Keon White. Now, this dude was everywhere. He was lining up as a stand-up outside linebacker. He was lined up as the 4 technique, where it's like a defensive tackle, defensive end hybrid, all up and down the defensive front, making an impact. You saw his power. There was one play on 3rd and 1 where he took on 2 blockers, which you don't expect from a guy. He's 295. You usually expect that from somebody a little bit bulkier to stand up the way he did, pushed it back and got a run stop. Obviously the fumble recovery which is great situational awareness. I asked him about it after the game. He was like, yeah, that was just see ball, get ball. Great impact play from him to, be smart. And when he saw the running back try to recover, attack the football. And then you saw him get pressures. You saw him showing run defense. So the fact that he was that dominant shows you that he's probably going to be a guy who rotates pretty heavily early on a front that's already pretty loaded. And coming out of the draft, Keon White was somebody that people said, yeah, he's a freak athlete, he's huge, but he had more of a tweener body type because he's not as big in the lower half of his body as some guys would want for that defensive end role, but he was also kind of big for maybe an outside linebacker where you're dropping into coverage. But if you watch the tape, he has some Judon in his game where there were plays where he's dropping, we've talked about it, Khari, where he's dropping 30 yards downfield. Obviously, we saw what he can do in the trenches from different alignments. So you really like to see him not just look good, but dominate against what was mostly a backup line. I think the Texans had a couple guys that were expected to be starters, but really their best players weren't playing. Like Shaq Mason wasn't there, Larry Thompson wasn't playing. But still, you want to see him smack around those backups. That's exactly what he did. Then Christian Gonzalez. I thought that he had really good coverage. There was the first play, obviously, where he got blown up. I think it was to Nico Collins on an out route. Learning moment, you don't want to tackle somebody standing up. That's just physics. There were some concerns about Gonzalez. Is he tough enough? I didn't think that play was an example of him not being tough. I think it's just, hey, you need to drop your shoulder. And even if you think that guy's going out of bounds, you got to be ready for it. But besides that, I thought the Coach K, who's a friend of the show, pointed out and made a really good analysis on saying that those bender routes where, the Shanahan play where they have the fake outside zone and then the bootleg with the receivers running across the field, it's really hard to run with good athletes who are running those kinds of routes because typically, like in Gonzalez was in this instance, he had outside leverage with the route going across the field and breaking inside. But he allowed the catch, but then saw the football and punched at it. And if he wasn't near the sideline, that might have been an opportunity for a fumble recovery. So besides that, on plays where you didn't really see him, I thought when he was in off coverage, he played to his leverage very well and had a good awareness of where the sticks were. And then when he was tight and man-to-man, locked down. Nobody was separating from him. Saw good coverage on a comeback. Routes that usually, you're trying to manipulate the cornerback into thinking you're going downfield. Gonzalez knows he's faster than everybody, so he was having none of it. So your two young top picks, obviously Marte Mapu didn't play, but it seemed like he was charting plays, which is usually something you see from backup quarterbacks. He was doing that for Steve Belichick. Which, didn't obviously have an impact on the field because of his pectoral injury. But the fact that he's, all the praise he's gotten from veterans saying he asks a lot of questions, he's a really smart kid. That's a great example of that. So I think what you saw from their top 3 defensive picks, really, really good stuff out of them.
Yes. And I'm thinking about Anthony Jennings and what you were talking about with the inside moves, right? And the fact that he's kind of, spamming it a little bit. And yes, there's no Laramie Tunsil. There's no Titus Howard. At the same time, this is a time to try things out, right? This is a time for you to work on new skills. So I love that. Yeah, he did it on a couple plays in a row, and you're just like, okay, in a game. In a game against, the top-notch competition, that's probably not going to work every single time. But hey, right now it's preseason game 1. Go ahead and do that. And I love, if you haven't gone ahead and checked this out, you go ahead and get on Twitter after you're done looking at this and look at Brian Baldinger breaking down what Keon White did, because you saw a lot of good fundamental stuff from him, using his length to keep blockers at base, literally stack and shed, right? You hear us talk about stack and shed and kind of these buzzwords, right? Well, you stack a guy up and you hold him away from you and control him with your hands and arms. So then you decide where you go next. He doesn't decide that for you. And for a guy these are literally his first live snaps against an offensive line that's not the New England Patriots, to be doing that, put the competition aside for a second. That's putting fundamentals on tape on the field. And look, that's the kind of stuff that will help you against better competition. So I think that's exactly the kinds of, again, with your rookies, with your young players, you just want to see them in the right positions doing the right kinds of things. And I thought the same thing about Gonzalez. Yeah, would it be great if he was stickier on the coverage on that crosser? I mean, it's a tough assignment following a guy all the way across the field, but the instinct to get the football out. Love that. Yeah. Another guy that we haven't touched on yet, Jalen Mills, veteran at safety. You asked him about
so many impact plays.
I loved you talking about, I love you going and asking him about what the coverage was there and what it actually was. Because those are the kinds of things that it looks a certain way in real time, but in reality, there are all these intricacies that we don't always understand. So I love that you asked him about, what was it, robber? Was it cover 2? What have you? And I mean, that's just the benefit of having a veteran out there. Because one guy who low-key I didn't love the way he played was Jack Jones. I think he was getting baked yesterday. And he got picked up on that play by Jalen Mills.
Yeah. So I went specifically when I asked Jalen what was going on that play, he said, they were actually, it was cover 1, but they were blitzing up front. So Jalen Mills had the tight end Dalton Schultz in man coverage. But because it was like 3rd and 21, that's pretty much an impossible situation in the NFL. Kind of surprised that the coordinator even asked Stroud to try to convert in that situation. But he said, I had the tight end and man coverage in the backfield. And because it was a long yardage situation, I kind of knew he wasn't really a priority. So I was able to play with the young quarterback, make him think it was either one robber or cover 2, even though, once again, he was in man and kind of freelance a little bit. And with a veteran like Mills, understanding the situation, like you hear freelancing and she's just like, oh, he's playing outside of structure. That's a heads up veteran play where you know the situation, you understand. It's more likely that the quarterback is going to throw this, over the middle or somewhere downfield, then he's going to check it down and I'm going to make a bad play because I have so much room to get down and actually make that tackle. So he said, I played with the quarterback and then read the route, as you said. One thing with Jack Jones, and this is something that he struggled with last year as well. Sometimes at the top of routes, he plays a lot of off coverage. And when guys threaten him with speed or make him kind of redirect quickly, sometimes he loses his balance, which is something he's really got to work on. I noticed that a few times in the game, there was an instance on Jalen Mills' interception where Jones lost his balance. And if Mills wasn't there, not only would it have been a completion, but because Jones fell, there's a chance that might have actually turned into a really long conversion, which you never want to see. So great play there by Jalen Mills. And one more guy I would love to highlight, or 2 more guys actually, on the defensive line who I forgot about. Some people, maybe Patriots fans, aren't super familiar with. Sam Roberts, another defensive end, defensive tackle kind of hybrid who can also play on the edge, and Jeremiah Farms, who's more of a defensive tackle, nose tackle, but also has played some offensive line for the Patriots past couple of years. So I think I had him on the practice squad because I think they really like his versatility. Those guys really stood out. One, versus the run, I thought Sam Roberts in particular looked really good against double teams, stood his ground. Not even that, but also was able to shed blocks, which is a really tough thing to do when you're being double teamed. Traditionally, you just want to kind of make a mess when you're double teamed and just make it kind of hard for the quarterback to read. He was getting off blocks as well. Also showed some power and good hand fighting as a pass rusher. And then Jeremiah Farms, I thought, like you said, the stack and shed, he had some 3 or 4 textbook examples of that stack shed technique and also look good on some loops as a pass rusher. So, I mean, the depth the Patriots have up front, like Sam Roberts and Jeremiah Farms, those are 2 guys who are probably going to be on the practice squad and still made some good contributions. Again, against more of a depth offensive line, but still, when you're a backup playing backups, you'd like to dominate and you'd like to show out. And I thought they did a good job in that regard.
And it's funny, too, thinking about Sam Roberts. By the way, we're having some technical difficulties. I don't know if y'all can hear it on my end, but we've been having some issues with my microphone. I apologize, y'all. Don't really know what's going on, but you know what? We're gonna power through it. And I'm gonna set Taylor up. Okay, I'm gonna distribute. All right, I'm gonna be the Mac Jones of this conversation. You know, in terms of just get it out quickly. So one thing that we were just talking about with the interior defensive line depth. Sam Roberts didn't do much of anything in camp last year. That was one thing that we were all looking for. Like, okay, so they got this guy in the 6th round. Like, is he actually playing? Have we like seen him do anything at all? And then he gets in the game, and all of a sudden he's forcing fumbles and he's getting sacks. Sometimes guys just show up well in games. I think Jeremiah Farms is a guy that in training camp last year, he really kind of flew under the radar. But he did some really solid things. There are just too many people ahead of him on the depth chart. But as a practice squad player, I think that him, Sam Roberts, there are guys that you can't discount the value of having good practice players on your team. And I think that also goes on the other side of the ball, because I want to switch over to what happened at the end of this game yesterday with Malik Cunningham coming in at quarterback. And in particular, I want to talk about a guy like Trey Nixon, where Trey Nixon is not going to be somebody who's going to make a lot of substantial contributions to your 53-man roster. I think we can safely say there aren't going to be any 1,000-yard seasons in his future. But there's a reason they keep this guy around all the time, because he practices hard and he gets guys prepared. But, man, I really wish he had just caught that ball that was thrown to him by Malik Cunningham, because that was just an incredible throw. Let's talk some Malik Cunningham, man, because, look, we were all mentally in the, all right, head for the exits, people, and then he comes in and really turns it up a notch.
Yeah, so I was telling John yesterday in the postgame show, I literally, and Amit was right next to me, I had kind of stopped paying attention once Trace McSorley came in, because I'm like, all right, it's Trace McSorley. No offense, and I cannot stress this enough. Trace McSorley seems like such a great person, and I don't want him to get any hate on Twitter or whatever. It's like, we know what he is. You don't need to beat a dead horse. Seems like a great dude, but he's just not really an NFL quarterback in terms of his accuracy and consistency. So yeah, once he came in, I was like, all right, it's a depth offensive line. I'm going to start going through what was going on with Zappe and the defense, start finding some clips and cutting things up. And I'm sure you probably saw, if you were following my tweets, that I was going back in the game instead of kind of locked in on what was going on. Then Malik Cunningham went from receiver to quarterback. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'll start to pay attention again. This looks pretty cool. And then immediately you saw the playbook open up. He had some zone reads. He had a couple quarterback draws. One, that's already exciting. You'd like to see a dynamic running game that we haven't seen from the Patriots since Cam Newton, of course, because of the type of quarterback they traditionally have. But beyond that, like, when you think of a guy like Malik Cunningham, who's got really good athleticism, he's undrafted, so you would assume that he's not a very good passer, that he uses his athleticism as more of a crutch than a compliment, which is what I said in a tweet earlier. Malik Cunningham looked really good. I thought, his accuracy was solid, especially for a guy who came on the field cold. This dude was playing receiver the quarter before this, the drive before this, and then went under center. And he hadn't been playing quarterback much at all in training camp. He was a receiver almost every day until the last couple of days before the preseason. And then he was starting to get reps. And then you saw there were some solid throws. There were some times where I'm like, yeah, he's kind of holding the ball. Understandable. He's not looking comfortable back here again with that offensive line. Completely get it. But I thought that he was making good decisions. He wasn't forcing throws. He looked comfortable going through his progressions, his pocket presence you could see. He wasn't making any drastic moves. He was just trying to find a good base to set up from. And then the throw to Trey Nixon, oh my goodness, man. I'm telling you, like, if that had been completed, you would be seeing it all over the place. Because it's like, wait, this is a guy who's been playing receiver who, was a college quarterback, but he was undrafted. And you see a guy like that make a beautiful touch throw away from coverage on the run. Like, you don't even see that all the time from Mack and Bailey Zappe, again, because they're not those types of quarterbacks. But yeah, man, I really liked what I saw in terms of accuracy, in terms of composure. You saw in Malik Cunningham's first pass attempt, it was a bootleg where he fakes, he turns around, there's an unblocked edge rusher coming at him. Little hesitation, the rusher freezes just to buy him time. Awkward platform, gets the ball out. It was behind the receiver, but again, it was an awkward platform. You're just trying to get the ball out. So I thought you saw a lot of good things from him. Yeah, it's preseason, all these things. We understand all that. You know, I'm not trying to hype him up and be like, oh, quarterback competition for Mac Jones, because that's not what this is. Mac Jones is the entrenched starter. But I do think it starts a conversation where you're saying, okay, I've already predicted in my roster projection that McSorley's not going to make the team. I think Malik Cunningham is going to be your practice squad quarterback, but he keeps showing out. Then it's like, all right, do we have to keep him on the roster? Because we don't want someone else to poach him. And actually, when I spoke to Mark Schofield, friend of the show, beloved friend, I love Mark, one of the sweetest guys in this business, also
awesome.
a freaking genius. Fantastic quarterback evaluator. Ahmed, I think we have the clip where I spoke with Mark actually a few months ago when Malik Cunningham was signed, and he was saying that he thinks Malik's ceiling his senior year is quarterback 2 controversy. So, Ahmed, if we could roll that, if we have it.
He's a quarterback in my mind.
Okay.
I really think that there is, obviously it would sort of be a longer term developmental prospect at the quarterback position, but yes, what he does in the run game is dynamic and explosive. Like he had, I think, a 30 and a 40-yard run on, successive plays, I think, against Syracuse. So he's brings something to the table as a runner. And yes, that's the athleticism. So if down the road the quarterback stuff doesn't work out, maybe. But then you see him fight in the pocket and pocket feel, pocket presence, pocket poise. It's such a tough thing. I often think you either have it or you don't. He has it. And there are moments when you see him stay in the pocket, keep his eyes downfield, not drop his eyes in the face of multiple points of pressure, work through reads, and then get to like a backside dig route and rip a throw over the middle. To me, that's high level quarterback play. And the fact that, there was competition for him. In the start of the UDFA process, Tom Pelissero said that there were multiple teams in on Malik Cunningham, and the Patriots had to sort of outbid them. Makes me think that maybe some teams were in there because they see a potential position switch, but I'm sure some others thought, hey, here's a developmental guy at the QB position that there's stuff here to work with, and give him a year or two in our system, and we can sort of maybe get him there. And so, again, I love that he said that. I love that he's willing to sort of help the team and do anything possible, but I think he's a developmental prospect at the position. And you look at, when it gets down to UDFA time and you have the opportunity to pick your spot, certainly the money sways you a bit. Mm-hmm. But with Zappe, McSorley, and now Cunningham behind Mac Jones, there's an opportunity for him to sort of stick on this roster and, practice squad or something like that, or even as QB3, depending on how things shake out, because he's a more dynamic, explosive runner than McSorley. If you think we'll have a QB3, maybe for some run game packages or just do something differently, Cunningham might be your choice there. And so I'm very excited to see him in minicamp. I'm excited to see him in training camp. I think there's something here with him. It's, again, longer term prospect at the position, but there's potential for sure.
So that's exciting stuff from Mark, huh?
Yeah. And you know what? I think, look, there's a part of this where we always say this when it comes to exciting young prospects. Oh, he's not going to make it past waivers. Oh, we can't have him, put him on the cut line because we won't make it. And there's kind of this fear and trepidation. I feel like with Malik Cunningham, he probably doesn't make the practice squad if you cut him. So if you like him, you probably got to keep him, because here's the thing: he plays quarterback. Right. And I think that there are, as Mark pointed out, there are enough people who are intrigued by what he does and the skill set that he offers, and are going to be able to look at the film that he has of playing quarterback and look at some of the film he has of playing receiver and say, dude, this is a multidimensional guy. We can just go ahead and just stash him and have him do XYZ thing for us. The Patriots already have that market cornered. And I feel like, again, there's a very small sample size here, but I feel like if he continues to do what he's done, and it doesn't even necessarily need to be, oh, he's coming out here and absolutely dominating at quarterback. I think it's just, is he making his reads? Is he, completing, passes at a solid enough rate? Is the ball going where it's supposed to go? And is he showing an understanding of the playbook as a receiver, where he's supposed to be, even if he's not getting the ball thrown to him? Because the other thing is, we want to touch on this a little bit. The offensive line wasn't giving a whole lot of opportunities to really test what the passing game could do. Now, before we get to that point, we do have a little bit of something to get to from our sponsors at FanDuel. My friend Amit, hit the button.
Pay those bills.
Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. I wonder how many people are going to bet on the Patriots. You can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/Boston.
Thank you very much.
I love that music.
Yes. Thank you very much to our friends at FanDuel for that. Real quick, I just got to address one of these, just one comment that I just saw. Okay. From Low 520. Zappy probably not going to make the roster. He's just under Brian Hoyer.
No. Oh yeah. Let's maybe dive into that one a little bit.
Bailey Zappi's he's your quarterback too. That's how it's going to go. Malik
and
Cunningham,
I do think that Cunningham
great
may be able to compete at some point. I think he can maybe push for, but let's not get too crazy.
Bailey Zappi is your second string quarterback. That's how it is right now. That's how it's going to be going into the season. That is it. Okay, I get it. We love Malik. We love what he did. We love the ability to create plays and run, et cetera, et cetera. Bailey Zappi's your second string quarterback. Okay, let's not do this right now. We always want to do this. It's like we got to stay calm, keep some perspective. Now, I do want to turn it over to you because you had a point about Bailey Zappi and a little bit about the offensive line depth and how concerned should we actually be about that?
Yeah, so one thing, and this was the picture for me. Obviously, I liked the whole shot and the aggressiveness. I liked that he was trying to do that. He looked at the safety and actually went for a throw rather than just going for the out. I like that from him. Obviously, the throw could have been better. But the play after that, there was a quick concept where they had a stick route to the left and a slant flat to the other. Now, these are usually plays where you hit the back of your foot, the ball comes out. But his first read was a little murky. It looked like, now the defender was in the flat, actually wound up kind of flying outside. But because your timing is sped up there, it was a good decision by Zappi not to throw it because he wasn't sure. You see him very quickly look to his right, tried to throw the slant. There was a defender walling it off, and then took the decision to take the flat route, get easy yards. Trey Nixon takes it underneath for a first down. That kind of processing is not something you find very often. And I think that, Zappi may not have the athletic ceiling of a Cunningham, but right now, he's still a good quarterback, and he's still somebody that you want to work with. Now, I do think that, especially because Mark was so adamant about, Malik Cunningham is a good quarterback, not just a good mover or a good mobile quarterback. He is a good quarterback. That's why I'm saying, okay, down the road, I do think he could be competition for Bailey Zappi, just because even if he's 80% of the thrower or the quarterback, what you get on top of that is enough that it's like, okay, now we need to see you guys in live action and see, who's maybe giving us more. But yeah, I don't want to discredit Bailey Zappi, but at the same time with the offensive line, when I went back and watched, I thought the offensive line struggles were more tied into the run game. Because it's like Dante Scarnecchia always said, you want to see things through one set of eyes. When it came to run blocking, I didn't think that was the case. There were times where it seemed like there were combos that weren't executed very well and kind of put guys in tough positions. There were times where assignments were completely blown. So in terms of the run blocking, I thought that's where the unit struggled. Pass protection, I actually thought they were pretty solid. Now, again, Connor McDermott did struggle, which you don't want to see from a veteran who's playing against backups. That I did think was concerning. I did think that, James Ferentz acquitted himself pretty well. The rookie picks, Sidney So, Jake Andrews, Antonio Mafi. Antonio Mafi actually had way fewer snaps than the other rookies, which I thought was a sign of how much they respect him. I thought those guys actually did a good job in pass protection. Sidney So, I think he lost pretty clean on a speed rush. and then was beaten after a couple of seconds with the rip move later on in the game. Not perfect from him, but still, I don't think it was as bad as it looked live. And there were also a lot of, like I said, quick throws. There were screens. There weren't a ton of opportunities for these guys to really show what they could do in pass protection in a conventional style. And when the Patriots tried to drop back, they usually put a tight end and the running back in the backfield to give the tackles a little more help. So, yeah, the offensive line, I think if you're going to really take something away, it's that the run blocking, it needs work because guys were just running into walls. Kevin Harris actually was pretty solid. He made, I think, 3 defenders miss. Really kept his feet going and churned for a first down on a 2nd and 1 where he was met in the backfield and there's just a wall in front of him. So I thought that was where there was a lot of area of concern. But in terms of pass protection, I thought they held up pretty well, all things considered. Again, this is a line that doesn't have a lot of chemistry. And where Zappe was sacked both times, the Texans kind of dialed up something. It wasn't like
house blitz. They were going in. They were going in.
It wasn't a wing thing where you're seeing like slot blitzes and freaking like sim pressures, and it wasn't anything too crazy like that. But so what Bailey Zappe was getting sacked on, it's called a coffee house stunt. I don't know why it's called that. I'm guessing it's because it catches guys sleeping, where they would have 5 guys on the line of scrimmage. So 4 down linemen with a mug linebacker in the middle, basically standing up over the center saying, I might rush. You don't know what I'm going to do. And you have to account for him in the protection. What he would do was he would do this and pretend like he was dropping so that whoever had him in protection, usually the center, would just say, okay, I'm going to go help out one of the guards. And then he'd loop around somewhere else because when you see a 5-man front, you generally switch to a man protection. So it's, I got this guy in front of me, I'm going to block him. If a unit has a lot of chemistry, they understand that when a defensive line does that, they're trying to get them in that, and they'll be more aware of, okay, there's probably somebody coming. I'll be wary of that. That wasn't really the case because this line didn't have a lot of chemistry together. And both times Zappe got sacked, it was the same thing. It was just a guy looping around. And then the first time the guy came in clean. The second time, I believe it was Chasen Hines, tried to recover, but was just too late and couldn't do anything about it. Zappe actually did a good job making that guy miss, but then the line kind of collapsed around him. So again, generally I thought the offensive line was solid given that they don't have a lot of experience together. But need better run blocking, and the Texans, kind of a jerk move to pull out a play that some teams don't even run at all and use it twice in a preseason game.
There's one team or there's a couple teams every year that go all in, right? I remember watching, I think it was the Bears and Chiefs actually in preseason game 1 last year. And Steve Spagnuolo was just throwing blitzes at the poor Chicago Bears offensive line right off the bat. And you knew they couldn't protect any of it. And Justin Fields is running for his life. And he's just like, I just got here. Why are you doing this to me? And it's like, I think there's some value to it in the sense of like, okay, you put something on film, and particularly with DeMeco Ryans. I think first-time head coach, defensive coordinator, just like, we're not going to be doormats this year. No, we're going to go out there. We're going to go hard from day one, snap one. It's like, okay, bro, you're over here acting like a try-hard. Like, let's chill. But I think there's a little bit of that to it. But hey, in the end, they're going to get to see that on film, and they're going to know how to deal with that. And I think there's something that is useful to that, because you think about week 1 of the regular season last year, where an offensive line that didn't have, or especially a left side of the offensive line that was still working on chemistry with Cole Strange propped in the middle of David Andrews and Trent Brown, they messed a couple of things up and had a strip sack and a touchdown come off of that. We don't want any more of that. So I would say there is a value to it. Obviously, you're happy that Bailey Zappe didn't get destroyed on either of those, and those young offensive linemen can go ahead and look at that on film, and the entire team, the entire offensive line group can look at that on film as well. Before we wrap up, anything on your mind, like kind of big takeaway that we haven't talked about yet, or something you're looking forward to next week? I can think of one thing I'm looking forward to next week.
I'm looking forward to Malik Cunningham. I'm sorry if I stole your thunder there, but I need to see like 2 quarters of him because I thought he earned it. Trace McSorley had very limited reps. It's not like we had a huge sample size of what he couldn't do, but I think Cunningham is the guy you need to go to. We know what Trace McSorley is.
I want to see Demario Douglas because again,
Okay.
the guy that we did not see pretty much at all. I think he fair caught a punt at one point, but the vibe that you got from the New England Patriots is that they didn't play him because he's been destroying everything in practice, and so he's earned a little bit more of a role with the real offense. So
it would take a Shakespearean drop for him not to make the roster. I said that in my roster projection.
Yeah.
Like he was standing with the starters. Like he's good. They don't want to play him because they don't want to get him hurt.
No, exactly. He said, "We're cool. I'm talking about we're about to see this dude with Mac Jones next week. That's what I'm talking about. So I want to see that because I need to see this brother out here running around. Real quick, somebody asked if Taylor was into cosplay, what character would he do? I know mine. Can you think of one off top right now?
Jon Stewart, Green Lantern.
Ooh,
just off the dome.
All right. So
what's your question?
So look, I've been really into Naruto lately. And my brother and I have decided that of all the characters, I'm definitely Itachi. Like,
okay, I've not seen it, but that's a cool name.
I've got a lot of troll in me, and definitely my idea of torturing somebody would be definitely in line with what he would do. So you know what? Go look up some Itachi Uchiha, and you're welcome for that. Anyways, this has been the first post-game edition of Patriots Daily. Thanks for bearing with us through the audio and the technical difficulties. This was fun as always, and we're going to be hitting it again on Monday and after the next preseason game in week 2. I'm Khari. That's Taylor. Till next